Yeah, okay. Should I stay here or should we? Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are ready to start this actually relevant, extremely relevant session, panel, concerning, again, the last part of a speech of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, because we are going to have on stage Rama, the Prime Minister of Albania, and Dimitar Kovachevski, the North Macedonian Prime Minister. They are both important. Players in the Western Balkans, and as you heard before, Ursula von der Leyen has done a rather important announcement concerning the enlargement. And as you know, these countries are on the forefront to join the European Union, and they have been discussing about joining the European Union for a long time, despite some, say, political troubles, not only in the region, but also within the European Union concerning the enlargement. So I would like to start by asking Prime Minister Rama about what Ursula von der Leyen has just said. So giving some benefits to their countries, to these countries, to the Western Balkan countries, benefits that should be given to countries that are part of the European Union in advance, before completing the enlargement. Do you think that this is a good way to proceed?
Thank you for having us here. It's very important, and at the same time we are for sure privileged to have our space in this global security conference. Let me tell you a few data before or to help the discussion and to give an appropriate answer. And let me start with what happened in Europe and with the European Union states to respond to the big crisis that hit Europe, but hit also us. So, to explain the huge gap between European Union member states and us, Western Balkan states. So between 2020 and 2021, through two huge packages, REACT EU and European Recovery and Resilience Facility, European Union has allocated 47.5 billion plus 672 billion for the member states. While for us it was allocated 1 billion for the whole six, among which 500 million grants and 500 million loans. But guess what? The 500 million grants that were direct support for our energy common problem, from which Albania got 85 million, were reallocation of the IPA funds. So practically what we had to get through IPA funds for defined projects were turned in a direct contribution for our budget of 85 million. So I'm not saying that this was not a good thing. I'm saying that this was just a reallocation. And second point I want to make is that EU allocations of grants to member states in Southeast Europe will be up 11 times compared to the Western Balkans. The third point I want to mention is IPA funds, which are what we get, are 90% technical assistance, 10% investments. While cohesion aim funds are 92% investments and 0.3% technical assistance. And for the moment, the last point I have to make through numbers is that the allocations of the EU budget between Western Balkan 6 and EU member states are 138 euro per Western Balkan citizen, 4,517 euro per European Union citizen. So this is a bit where we stand, and this is why not only we fully agree with what Ursula said, but we think that this is a death or life problem for us, for all of us. So while the process of European integration and through accession talks will take its time, and frankly, I'm convinced that this should not be rushy. This should be really systematic and solid. We have to get something more, and something has to fundamentally change in the relation between European Union and Western Balkans if they don't want to see Western Balkans go back again.
Prime Minister Kovachevski, what is your opinion about what Ursula von der Leyen has said about this idea of pushing the growth in the region before the region joins, or part of the countries of the region joins the European Union? Do you think it's a way of trying to delay further the enlargement, or it's just to help the region?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be, for the second time, part of this really prominent conference. And it really comes at a time of great challenges for Europe and for the Balkans. You know, we all use this new term, Western Balkans, and you are an experienced journalist. So can you tell me where are the borders of the Western Balkans? Where is it starting and where is it ending?
I agree with you, but it's a conventional expression that is being used.
So you see, because of these conventional expressions, the Balkans has been stigmatized for centuries back. And then we are coming here on panels, only Western Balkans 6, Western Balkan 3, Western Balkan 2. I think you should sometimes maybe mix with somebody who is not from the Balkans, that we can exchange views. How does somebody from Southeastern Europe thinks about certain issues which are of interest of the European Union as a whole and Europe as a continent, with somebody who is coming from Scandinavia, let's say. And then it's always good to have different opinions and to aggregate a common, even better conclusion at the end of the day. So you have a right question. Is the gap decreasing between the Balkan countries and the European Union countries, or is it increasing? And I'm talking about the economic gap. So Eddie had a great analysis. If we just take the last number he mentioned, the 11 times higher support from the funds per capita for European Union.
No, just Southeast. Just
Southeast.
Croatia, Slovenia.
Yeah,
and all
the members
yeah.
which are from the Southeast.
No, not forget
Compared to
Netherlands.
the so-called Western Balkan countries, this increases the gap. So it does no good. When the gap is increased in economic terms, then it means that the level of education gap is increasing, the level of infrastructure gap is increasing, the level of transportation gap is increasing, the level of institutions efficiency gap is increasing. Your question was very correct. So whether this should be the approach and whether it will be seen as a maybe replacement for the enlargement. I think that European Union understood after the war in Ukraine the strategic mistake it was made some year ago when a veto was imposed on North Macedonia and Albania. And you know, when you make a strategic mistake, you cannot solve it in 5 minutes, because strategic mistakes have effects on at least a period of 5 to 10 years. So that's why I think, first of all, I know that the President of the European Commission is a great friend of our countries and great personal friend of ours, which helped in the most challenging times during last year and the year before, because we are several years working in a crisis, pandemic, then the war, the energy crisis, economic crisis. And the help which we received was, let's say, needed at that time. But I also have to stress that our people, that our institutions, and we together, so Edi, Alexandar, myself, Kyriakos, Donev, we really worked together in order to sail the crisis during the winter as better as we could. And we succeeded at the end of the day. And why have the countries in Southeastern Europe and in Eastern Europe, we are in Bratislava, in Slovakia, why they have improved economically? For only one reason. Because they became members of the European Union. You know, I am not that young as part of the audience here. You have a question here on Twitter, I guess. Would it be possible to create an organization like EU just among the Balkan countries? There was an organization like that. It was called Yugoslavia. The standard of Yugoslavia was 10 times bigger than the standard of Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania together. And the standard of your countries, because I see here people from Slovakia, from the Czech Republic and so on, is now better only because you are members of the European Union. So the way forward for the, as you call it, Western Balkans, is membership in the European Union.
Okay,
whether it will come immediately or sectoral, this is a matter of execution.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Southeastern Europe. Maybe you will agree with that. But your expectation, do you think that this, say, new dynamic that has been offered, that is being offered to your countries is related to the war in Ukraine? And are they afraid, according to you, in the West, in the European Union and others, that other player could enter into this region, into Southeast Europe, like China or even Russia. Do you think this is the problem, the main problem? And so they are trying to find a way to combine the geopolitical necessity and keep the Western Balkans waiting at the same time.
So, to whom is addressed? To both of us?
To both of you, yes, please.
So listen, first of all, it was very unfortunate that EU needed a war to wake up. We in the Western Balkans could realize through pain and through frustration that EU was like walking like a somnambule somehow. And we could realize that there was no strategic vision. And although geopolitical concerns were raised in a kind of, routine speaking about third actors, there was nothing concretely done. And the most stunning moment of the gap between these routine speeches and the reality was when the pandemic hit it, and when we were, all of us, totally isolated, looking the European Union countries running to conserve themselves within the walls of their own borders. And when vaccine came, making a distribution of vaccines that totally discounted the fact that there were 6 countries surrounded by European Union borders that were in the same need. What happened was that we, as Albania, ran to Turkey, Serbia ran to China and Russia, North Macedonia ran to all of them, and so on and so further, to help for life, to save lives. So if it was not for the president of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, Albania would have gone through much more death, while the European Union was taking care of just its own self. And it took, I don't know how long time, for them to turn the eyes on us, and then it was good because they gave us a lot of vaccines. So this was crazy, and this was the reality. With the Russian aggression, for sure Europe woke up, European Union woke up. We had finally the open of the accession talks just, before it, but still it somehow was in the same period of time. And now it's very clear. We cannot wait for I don't know how many other years to have a real support in terms of convergence, because the convergence gap is widening instead of tightening. And the last point I want to make is that they talk a lot about supporting us, which they do, but still the numbers are merciless. 90% of the support for infrastructure, for energy, and so on, is coming through loans. So, and only 10% through grants. And when you go to the grants, as I said, the biggest percentage of the grants is technical assistance. So this should somehow change. I'm not naive, and I'm not asking that for the Western Balkan countries, EU should open some more places and have an equal distribution of its budget, because we all know that when it comes to money, the European solidarity is just an euphemism. And then the fight for getting the money is like, you know, in every merciless stock exchange. But we strongly believe that something new should be invented. Something new that would take the form of some pre-accession support that would help our countries to breathe more normally.
Prime Minister, and this question is again for both of you, but I have to take advantage of what you've just said. But
please do.
What don't you think that anyway the EU is also expecting something from your countries in terms of reform of the judiciary, dealing with corruption and public procurement? There are a lot of things to do that are expected from your country. So for a European Union that suffered this syndrome of the so-called enlargement blues in the past, and is still suffering, some indication coming from candidate countries, don't you think that are slowing down the process too? And also in terms of, as you said, putting money on the table for these countries.
Listen, the thing is very, very clear, I think. We need to be open, we need to be frank, we need to debate the real issues without hiding behind mirrors. Meaning, what we have gone through until we opened accession talks was a kind of neurotic process, because it was very clear that while we were ready to start accession talks, there was some election in one country, there was some threatening populist movement in another country, there was some, and instead of having the accession talks open, as the European Commission recommended, and the European Commission is the most incredible machine humankind has created to look into every detail and to drive you crazy for every detail, but at the end to have an objectively assessed reality, while the European Council has a completely different logic. So doesn't matter. You have fulfilled your obligations to start accession talks. If there are elections in a country, you cannot get it, which is fine. But what we were told was, you have to do more about corruption, you have to do more about this, you have to do more about that. No. We have done exactly what we had to do as far as the European Commission assessed it. And it's a 24/7 around-the-clock machine working to look in every detail. So, no. Better say, you have done great, but for the moment we cannot start this conversation with you because we have some problems in our own house. So this is how it should be now. Because you mentioned enlargement fatigue and all this, fine. We are not running to become members of Europe. Yeah. But we are not running to become members of the European Union. I am part of this school of thought that thinks that if it doesn't work with 27, how it will work with 33, and this +6 being from the Balkans, which is something even more special. So how it would work? So I agree with that. So let's open a clear conversation. Let's say, no, this would not work. We have to find out a different thing. But in the meantime, you have to take some more from us, and we have to enter in a new relation. So it doesn't matter. We are very, very keen to do so, and we are very keen to accept that maybe the time when we will be in the table of European Union to veto, based on our Balkan, it's very far, no problem. What should not be far and what should happen now is that the European Union should open a new path of cooperation in terms of funding, because otherwise there is no future in terms of security and stability for the Balkans. And if the Balkans cough, for the European Union is pneumonia.
Prime Minister Kovachevski.
It's always been a question about the accession, what you need to fulfill in order to become a full-fledged member of the European Union. And then we all talk about the Copenhagen criteria, because a bit they are forgotten. And let's take the case of North Macedonia. So what North Macedonia had to do to become member of NATO and member of the European Union. If there was a country which had to make hard decisions, tough decisions, then this is North Macedonia. North Macedonia changed the name of the country. Changed the name of the country to become member of NATO and member of the European Union. And when the referendum was finished, when the parliament voted for, the NATO delivered, the European Union didn't deliver. So these are the facts. Because they invented some veto there, because of the rule of law and some other things. We started our independence as a country 32 years ago, as part of a former bigger country. Building institutions, creating institutions, from scratches. Big part of these institutions are built together with the European Union countries and with the United States of America support. So they really are with very high institutional capabilities. Second, when we talk about integrity, when we talk about rule of law, when we talk about democracy, do you think that all the countries which joined the European Union were up to the level of France and Germany and Sweden? I would not agree. Even I can give a statement that the integrity of the Macedonian parliament in terms of compliance, in terms of compliance with anti-corruption is much better than the one of the European Parliament.
So you basically think that it is used as an excuse, basically.
I don't know. I cannot talk in the name of others. I can talk in our name. But I would say that we have done heavy reforms, and that EU, and here I dominantly think about the European Council, we should have a clear strategy for integration of the Balkans, all of the Balkans, the remaining which are not part of the European Union, in the European Union.
Okay, a clear strategy. Is somebody in the audience, does somebody in the audience would like to ask one question on these subjects that have been discussed?
I'm reading this Twitter here. What do you think that the Serbian army is preparing for?
You would like to answer to this? Okay.
No, I'm just reading this.
I think it's a little bit too strong, but it's well put anyway.
It's well put,
because he's mentioning the current tensions in Kosovo.
Yeah.
And what are your expectations?
No, they're just focusing to the Serbian army in the border. This is the most incredibly emotional show of internal politics, because the Serbian army in the border of Kosovo has a power equal to zero. It's like the Mexican army showing in the border of the United States what it can do. With all due respect, I love Mexico. What it can do? Nothing. Strictly nothing. It's just about internal politics. So there is a lot about internal politics in what's happening in northern Kosovo.
Prime Minister Kovachevski, do you agree with this position on the Serbian army?
Find another
The
country than Mexico.
You know, I must say that.
Right.
I must say that the only way out of this, the only way out of this, is implementation of the agreement between Kosovo and Serbia.
No, but we're not talking about that.
Implementation
Well,
of
no,
We're talking
the
about the Serbian army.
No, no,
Or
Prime
Implementation.
Minister, because the
like
the
Cuban
problem.
army in
implementation
front of Florida.
implementation of the annexes for normalization of the relations between the countries. We have seen the armies on the Balkans.
So when
And
you say
everything
implementation,
ended up.
no, just a second.
Everything ended up on negotiation tables.
When you say implementation of the agreements, you mean the Brussels agreement?
Brussels agreement.
So you're talking about the association of a Serbian municipalities?
Association of Serbian municipalities. You know,
So you think that the real problem is coming
typical
from
example.
that?
Typical example. And if you read the report of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, then you will find one example of a sustainable agreement that resolves identity issues within a country. And this is the Ohrid Framework Agreement in North Macedonia. The Ohrid Framework Agreement in North Macedonia has been signed after a conflict in North Macedonia between the two biggest ethnic communities, the Macedonians and the Albanians. Since then,
2001, no? Or was it
2001, since then, North Macedonia has been an example of a country which shows that through diplomacy, through negotiations, and through implementation of agreed agreements, it can progress from a country which has been using foreign or international military assistance to keep the peace, because the first United Nations mission was in North Macedonia, the UNPREDEP mission. Today, we are a factor of stability on the Balkans.
but
We are members of NATO, country which started negotiations with the European Union. We have the chair of the OSCE. So our Minister of Foreign Affairs is chairing the OSCE, and the Berlin process agreements between the Western Balkan 6 countries are deposited in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that's why I'm saying that the agreed international contracts and agreements cannot be misused for internal politics.
I have a question from the audience. There is a question from the audience. The lady there, if I'm not wrong. There.
Thank you. We are just a day away from what will be the next European political community held in Moldova, and we have seen a lot of political emotion that has gathered in the eastern countries that want to be part of the European Union since the war in Ukraine started. Do you feel like maybe the same kind of political emotion should be also seen in the Western Balkans before it's too late? And regarding the European political community, do you agree on the fact that it is a format that can be seen as an anti-chamber for the Western Balkans countries to keep you waiting more and more for the accession process to be definited? Thank you.
I must say that I am a big fan of the European political community. I think it's an amazing vision, and if this vision that already has been already public in the 17th century from someone named Abbé de Saint-Pierre, would have been embraced by all, maybe a lot of things would have been different. The vision included not only the European countries as we know them today, but also Russia, and also what was then the Ottoman Empire. So practically a European political community that would embrace countries from the west to the east, from Great Britain to Russia and Turkey, would have been something that would have avoided what we are living today, I believe. But although Russia has made its own terribly mistaken decision to go in an unknown direction and to introduce itself in 21st century like a country which believes in aggressing and in imposing its own imperialistic agenda through force by taking over another country, we can still build an incredibly good place for the countries that are in the European Union or are not in the European Union, but together create this European political community. And so I don't care about this obsession that we have to be now in the European Union because this European community may be undermine this process. No, I don't care. What I care more is that this European political community start to articulate in a real thing, and not just in a great vision that finds its implementation in only leaders meeting in Czech Republic and then in Moldova and then I don't know where and sharing their emotions. But we need to do something out of it. And by the way, what we are advocating and what we'll more and more advocate as a country, I'm talking about Albania, and I hope together with North Macedonia, together with Serbia, together with Kosovo and the others, I hope, is that it's exactly what we were talking. Having a different angle to work together. And this should be decided, of course, in Brussels, how to deal with the Western Balkan countries in a different way by, on one hand, being very strict in what concerns the individual path of every country in fulfilling the European Union criteria, because this is important for us. And I say, you know, it's for us very important. We should not look for a driving license without knowing how to drive the car with full speed. So we need to do our homework for our own self, not for the European Union. And on the other hand, how collectively we can do something different and not drag with these IPA funds that are mostly technical assistance, with these loans that are more and more expensive while we have deficits and debt ceilings that
we have
cannot
mentioned
be...
this previously. I would like, let me come back to...
No, but because this is the essence. So this is the same. What they'll do to Moldova? They'll get Moldova in the European Union? Come on. So they need to give to Moldova a different path. They need to give... What do they do with Ukraine? They'll get Ukraine in the European Union tomorrow?
Well,
No.
it is what it has been discussed.
Yeah,
anyway.
but it's not... First of all, it's not realistic. Secondly, is the anti-chamber of depression.
Not for everybody, and not
it's not
according to
the
Brussels.
anti-chamber of integration. It's the anti-chamber of depression because we know how it goes. You know, in Thessaloniki, when Dimitar had all his hairs, it has been said that we would be in the European Union before I lost my hair. So here we are.
Do you want to answer to this provocation?
Two boldy men, because we believed in this crap. So what we need is simply to be realistic, to be truthful, to be open, and to be blunt. When I say this, I am thinking about how blunt the Dutch can be when they have elections. And when they want you to wait until they finish their elections. So this is how it is. We have to deal with reality. And European political community is great. It's just great.
Prime Minister Kovachevski, you have been heavily provoked. We all heard that. So you have to reply.
This is the biggest. This is, you know, Eddie is the biggest provocator in the Socialist International. So, but he is a vice president. So.
No, to be provocator in Social International is like being a provocator in a graveyard. So it's easy.
You love prehistory, ancient history.
The dead are very quiet.
I want to start from the question as one of the participants asked. This is a nice team building exercise, the European political community, and I support it. So every 6 months, Europe gathers together, because now what is needed for Europe is unity. Because we have several folded crises which we have to manage. The war in Ukraine, which have tremendously negative effects on the inflation, lack of energy resources, need for financing the new infrastructure, because the war in Ukraine made two paradoxes. And nobody is talking about these two paradoxes, you know, because the next winter will come again. It's in few months. The infrastructure, which was built for decades, from the east to the west, Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, Druzhba, and so on, they're practically non-functional. The Western Europeans' economies were practically built partly on the cheap Russian gas, which is now not existing in the quantities which are needed. So this is paradox number one. They don't exist anymore. Paradox number two is that Russia will now have to build infrastructure to the east because they don't have it, to sell it to China, to India, or to whom they plan to do it. And what we do in Europe? Now we finance a new infrastructure from south to the north. How does the European Union plan to get secured this infrastructure? And here I'm talking about LNG terminals. Part of them will be in Albania. I'm talking about pipelines, gas pipelines, product pipelines. It means crude oil and oil derivatives. They will all go through North Macedonia and Serbia. This region has to be part of the European Union.
Look,
this
Mike, someone named Mike is asking you, shouldn't the Balkans sort out their internal conflicts and issues, keep to the existing agreements before blaming the EU? Mike, we are not blaming the EU, Mike.
I said that I answered the question already.
Who is blaming the EU? We love you. It's not blaming, it's loving.
I was very clear on the answer that the agreements have to be... The agreements have to be respected and implemented.
He doesn't understand.
Now you are
Mike does
against
not
the US.
even understand what we are talking about and is asking questions.
No,
you know?
what do you mean against the US? That an American cannot understand this is something that can happen, right?
This is the typical European.
So this is a typical question when somebody asks and does not even understand what we are talking about.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
This, Mike.
I don't know who is Mike.
Sorry,
if he's
Mike.
in the room, he can raise hands.
You don't know who is Mike.
No, I have to.
Mike is an NGO.
I do really apologize with Mike.
An NGO paid by USAID.
No, but it's true that you have given the idea that you had some.
And to finish.
No, but we need to laugh a bit because having the Balkans here and being serious like having Ursula, what's the point, you know? So with Ursula, with Ursula you can do serious business. With us, you have to laugh a bit, right?
Okay, but problem
So you
is
see,
I
after
don't know
the
Mike.
meeting-
That's
You don't know Mike.
No.
It's not
After
Italian,
the-
by the way.
After
So-
the meeting and you say to Mike, after this what I'm to transfer it to Mike if he's listening.
They
If not,
took off
give him
completely Mike from the screen now.
Yeah. After the meeting in Prague of the first meeting of the European political community, our ministers started to be invited together with the ministers of the European Union for energy and infrastructure. And now we are working together on building the infrastructure and also on liberalization of the market for gas supply in South and Southeastern Europe. Cannot do it without the Western Balkans, as you call it, because the pipelines will go there.
Just to tell Mike.
No, but okay, it's enough. No, just a moment. No,
European Union.
Just a moment.
Just to complete this.
Short one, really short, please.
Inviting someone from the Balkans, asking him to be short is a contradiction.
No, but okay.
So,
but you have to join the European
we are
Union.
taking
so
breath for 3 minutes.
that's why I say no rush, guys, to go to the European Union because then they cut you short.
Yeah.
So what I want to say seriously is the European Union, just for the people to realize, Mike has no idea about it. That's why I want to clarify.
Okay, Mike, what's the question?
No, Mike is not just one person. Mike is a huge thing.
Yep.
So it's a huge problem we have with Mike. The European Union is the only geopolitical reality in the history of humankind, in the history of mapping and maps, that has 2 borders. If you find another one, let me know. 2 borders, one outside border and one inside border. And within the inside border is the Western Balkans. So you cannot come to the Western Balkans without entering the EU. You cannot reach us. Like the umbilicus. We are there, and like the umbilicus is kind of something there, which looks sometimes like unnecessary, but sometimes can be infectious, but sometimes can look beautiful. So
yeah, but there is
this is the reality.
Sorry, there
This
is a
is- no, no, I
concrete.
want- I want to add something.
Sorry,
I
Prime
want-
Minister.
Let him-
There is a concrete
Okay,
question.
let him finish.
There is a concrete question, please. We see that the slowing down of a process is also related to, and you said that, some inefficiency of a region, plus what is going on now, for instance, between Kosovo and Serbia. These things are slowing down the process. And this is not...
Listen, let me
This
tell...
is an objective fact.
You are right. You are right. Is
So-
it slowing down the process or is it speeding up the process? This is a discussion we have to do. But first of all, let's take things in perspective. Unfortunately, before every summer, we have a problem in the northern Kosovo. I don't know why it's related with summer, maybe because nor Kosovo and either Serbia have not sea. But, and they get they get somehow hot in their mind. But where we were 20 years ago, where we were 10 years ago, we were in a much more difficult place. The Western Balkans are today in their best place. Even between Kosovo and Serbia, things have never been better, believe me, because they are now just one step to close a historic deal. And of course, now both of them, they have this reluctance because they are looking that this is going to be realized. And they will not have to fight anymore each other. And this maybe is going against their own inertia of having to fight, needing to fight, living to fight. So this is the perspective. It's better than any time. Now, this conflict there has a reason, which, in my view, could be completely avoided, which, in my view, shows not about the concrete problem. These elected mayors with 1% of the population, while 99% of the population there is of another ethnic group, and feel completely not represented, and so on. But the essence of it is there is a deal to be closed, mutual recognition, which is something incredible, and there is the reluctance to close the deal that produces this kind of things.
Prime Minister, you have, I'd like to remind you that you have a meeting with Ursula von der Leyen. So
when?
Now.
When?
It's imminent, apparently, I've been told. So thank you both.
You are being told in your... Someone want to kick us out. I don't this is always how...
You are uncomfortable. You are uncomfortable.
And when they kick us out, it's always with a greater reason.
Yeah.
You have to meet Ursula von der Leyen. Okay.
That's what I've been told.
We have to meet the Pope now.
That's what I've been told. No, sorry. I have to close the session. Sorry. Thank you very much for this calm meeting.
No, if you wanted a hotter meeting, you have to bring the Serbs
I'd like
here.
to remind people, I'd like to remind the audience that now there is another extremely important moment. The man of the news, the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Albin Kurti, will be interviewed by Kim Dozier. So.